Hey everyone, I'm Kevin with Squatch. So today in the garage, I'm going to walk you through how to install our rear bumper here on our Ranger XP 1000. So to start things off, we're going to do just a little bit of assembly here on the bumper. You can kind of see, obviously I've got the bumper out here along with the logo cover plate as well as the light cutout cover plates. So we'll start here in the center with the logo cover plate. These simply slide on to the face right here, and then you're going to find the shorter 1032 button head bolts in your hardware pack. Kind of get a couple of these started just to keep it from rotating, and then one at a time you can grab the number 10 flange lock nuts to reach through from the back side here and get those started as well. Now after you get all of the hardware started for this, you'll need an 1/8" hex and maybe a 3/8 socket or wrench to hold the nut on the back side, and you can go ahead and start tightening these up. So next we'll move out to the sides here and install the cover plates for the light cutouts. Now the way you install this as well as configure some of this with the mounts is going to depend on whether or not you're actually installing these LED lights at this time. Maybe you're going to do it later on, or maybe not at all. So if you're not going to be installing any LED lights at this time or any time later on, this is really pretty easy. You simply lay down the cover plate and find the longer number 10 hardware to install those. Now since we are going to be installing these LED lights at this time, we're just going to get all of our hardware loosely pushed in place through the front here, and then you're going to find these light mounting brackets. There's going to be one for each side. So on this side it'll go in this orientation. To use it on the other side, you simply flip it over so that this kind of solid face is away from the light opening. So you're going to get this positioned correctly, and then you're simply going to slide it onto the back of those two screws and back that up with more of those flange locking number 10 nuts. You can kind of look through the light cutout here, as well as kind of put your finger through there to help hold the tab while you're getting those nuts in place. And then we're going to leave those nuts just a little bit loose for now, so you have the adjustability here to slide these in and out while you're getting your actual light installed to these tabs. Now here on the back side of the bumper, you can kind of see how those brackets are in place. And then we're going to be installing a set of these 6" single row LEDs. Simply slide those in between the bracket, and then you can get things lined up, and using the light manufacturer's mounting hardware, you can get the light secured here to the tab. And then we can just come over and do the same thing on this other side. So after that, it's just a matter of coming back to the outside and making sure these are visually centered in the slots before tightening everything up. Now once you get both of your lights installed along with all those cover plates, we're ready to move on to installing both the inner and outer mounting brackets on the frame of the vehicle. Now I'm going to start by installing the driver's side inner bracket. It's going to kind of install in this general orientation and location here, but I'm going to set this off to the side on the bench while we begin removing this first bolt. So that first mounting bolt is going to be this bed pivot location here. I'm going to start by grabbing a 15mm socket and wrench and removing the nut side. Now since this is the bed pivot, alignment is kind of critical here, and there could be just a little bit of tension on it. So what we're going to do is just kind of tap this back basically until we can get our new replacement bolt started. So now we kind of came a little further around the driver's side just to give you guys a better view of this hardware, but basically you can now take this inner mounting bracket, slide it up here tight to the frame, and find your 5/16 by 1" long hardware in your bolt pack along with the provided washers, and start kind of loosely hanging this at these 4 bolt locations. There's going to be 5/16 serrated flange nuts to go here on the back side of those. And then just go ahead and leave those a little loose for now. Now in these locations up here, things can get just a little bit tight, but a pretty easy way we found to get the nuts on the back side of those is simply slide that flange nut here into a 1/2" wrench and then reaching up through the back of that factory frame, you can kind of line that up here and install your bolt. Now once we have the bracket hanging loosely on that 5/16 hardware, you'll want to find the longer 10mm bolts in your bolt pack along with a washer, and you're basically just going to lightly drive that factory bolt out of this pivot location with the new bolt. Then on the back side of that bolt, you're going to have a washer as well as a nylock nut that we provide that you can simply thread on loosely for now. So after you've done that, you can jump over and install the passenger side bracket, which is essentially an exact mirror of this part and uses all the same hardware. Now we can move on to the outer brackets. So those are going to mount in this location here, just below the factory tailgate and tail light area. There's going to be one for both driver and passenger side. So you just need to grab a 13mm socket and remove these two factory bolts. Then you can grab your bracket, which is simply going to install in those same two holes with the new 8mm hardware. And you want to make sure that just kind of steps down and back with this other mounting hole. Then with that same 13mm socket, I'm just going to kind of run these most of the way in to sort of stabilize the bracket. However, we want to leave that a little bit loose for compliance when we install the bumper. Now with all four mounts in place, we're ready to actually grab the bumper and get it installed. So the way we're going to do that is just kind of loosely set the top face of the bumper on top of these two outer brackets, and then you'll want to make sure you have these 1/2" button head bolts and flange locking nuts handy so that you can drop those down through each of those holes to kind of loosely hold it in place. So you could always grab somebody to give you an extra set of hands during this step, but it should just be as easy as kind of sliding this on these two outer brackets and then getting those 1/2" button heads in place. Then just reaching in from underneath, you can install those 1/2" flange nuts. So then for each of these inner mounts, you'll need to find the 7/16 by 1 inch long hardware along with washers for those, and then serrated flange nuts to go in here inside of the bumper. Then simply slide that through the mount and get that started. So once you get all of this hardware started in both of those inner brackets, we can begin tightening things up. Now, if you haven't done so already, you're going to want to stand back and make sure that the bumper is centered on the vehicle before you go any further. So we're going to start with our outer mounting brackets here, tightening those up to the vehicle using that 13mm socket. Then you can find a 5/16 Allen wrench and a 3/4 socket and begin tightening up the bumper to those outer tie-in brackets. So just use your 5/16 Allen from the outside, 3/4 wrench down here on the nut, and get those tight. Now we can move on to these inner mounts. So in here, you're going to need an 18mm socket and wrench for our 10mm bolt in that pivot point. And then you should just need a 1/2" socket and wrench for the remaining 1/2" hardware both here and here. Now on the driver's side, this upper hardware is a little bit easier to access and you can probably get it with a socket, but on the passenger side, you'll want a ratcheting wrench to be able to get up here behind this heat shield. And lastly, you can tighten the bumper to these inner mounting brackets using an 11/16 socket. Then lastly, you can tighten up the bumper to these inner mounting brackets using a 5/8 socket. So at this point, all that's left to do is wire in your lights to complete your install. Now, if you guys have any questions about this installation or any other Squatch-proof product, You can always check us out online at squatch-proof.com or give us a call at 269-323-1162.